Do baby boomers have an advantage when it comes to working with AI that is completely different than all the disadvantages we had as a group when it was coming with working with all the other technology of the last 20 to 30 years? Today, we're going to discover just what skill sets are necessary to best take advantage of AI and why baby boomers might have an advantage over the Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Zers, even though we're not tech savvy. And with us today, we have Tal Galon. And Tal is an expert in AI integration. And Tal, if you would, first of all, welcome to the Wealthability Show. And if you would, give us a little of your background.
So thanks for having me, Tom. As you mentioned, my name is Tal Galon. I spent over 20 years as business development executive, researcher, and consultant before pivoting fully into AI implementation early 2020 or late 2022. Basically, the moment ChatGPT was released, I recognized this wasn't just another tech advancement, right? It was a complete paradigm shift, completely as far as I saw it then, and was very much verified now. It could level the playing field for small businesses. And just 2 days after ChatGPT went out, I phoned my brother who works for Google, and I told him, how come you guys are not in the game yet? And we had a discussion, and we see the results, of what's happening with AI these days. And what really drove my decision to focus on AI, and currently I drive 30-day AI sprints with small businesses. I call it a sprint because it brings you from 0 to 80 or from 30 to 90, but it really brings you a long way in this 30-day window. And I saw a financial broker. I was consulting how to transform his analyst workflow. And basically, he used to spend 5-6 hours preparing for each client's research report. And with the right AI implementation, we cut the time to under an hour, even half an hour, while actually improving the depth and quality of the analysis. And then I knew I had to kind of go with more businesses, help more businesses capture this opportunity because it's immense. Today, my company, AI Outfitters, we work directly with business owners to implement the practical AI solutions, less theory, more practice, and deliver immediate results. Clients typically see 50 to 70% time saving in key areas, and also significantly improving the output quality. So maybe to start with your question.
So let's start with this question. I started this with baby boomers have an advantage. And one of the things you talk about, and here's really the question. What skills do humans need to have to be successful with AI?
So first of all, questioning, right? You need to know to ask the right questions. And this is a much more significant way of showing intelligence than providing answers. Because ChatGPT can give you great answers. It can also give you good questions if you know how to question it. But to question something is beyond the scope of the ChatGPT, right? To question how I do things, to question what are the goals of my business, because you can have a very fancy, flashy warship going somewhere, but if you don't know where it's going, it's going to do that very efficiently, maybe, but it's going to get to the wrong destination if you don't know where you're going. And this is where people who have experience, like baby boomers, who know how a business works. It's really interesting that you mentioned this because it relates to a very viral post I saw today about a prompt, like having a McKinsey advisor in your pocket, and it gives you like a very, the output is like 10 pages of output of how to, create your business strategy, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not going to work for 99% of the businesses, because it's not based on the real business. It's not based on the grind, on the experience. So this is where I think, and I know, I see that people would tackle the things that are very on surface without depth, and then you'll have like very flashy outputs, but without the actual implementation, it's going to cause a lot of friction.
Yeah,
Right?
so I want to delve into just this idea of questioning, because first of all, I love hearing you say that that it's a much greater sign of intelligence, much more difficult to ask a good question than get a good answer. ChatGPT, it's like it's like the world's biggest library, right? It's a library of everything, and all you have to do is ask the right question, you can find it. Well, so as baby boomers, I was talking to my wife, also a baby boomer, last night about this. And I said, look, think about when we were young. So we didn't have Google. So it wasn't easy to type in a question and get an answer. We had to go to the library. We had to go to encyclopedias. We had to find out where in the encyclopedia it was. We had to use an index. At the library, we had to use the card catalogs with their archaic structure of how do you find the right book in the right place. And then even when we first had our first technology, when it came to legal research, and my field is tax, and it was called LexisNexis, and we had to use Boolean connectors. Now, you probably know what Boolean connectors are, but most people don't know what a Boolean connector is, where you have to say, okay, I want tax within 5 words of tariffs, or I want tax and tariffs versus tax or tariffs. How do you actually formulate that question in such a way that you find the precise answer? Because we were charged by the minute on that LexisNexis terminal, and the partner in charge of my department was pretty unhappy if I spent too much time on that terminal. So I had to make sure that I was asking really good questions. So it seems like with AI that if you ask an average question, you'll really get an average answer. And if you ask a really good question, it's like when I give research. So I give research to my staff, who are all millennials. Okay. My staff's millennials and Gen Zers. And I'll give a research issue to my staff, but I'll also do the research at the same time because I want them to learn, right? They'll come back. It'll take them an hour and a half, and I can go and do it in 3 minutes. And the difference is just because I'm asking better questions.
Right. Right. It's being precise, right? It's knowing what you're doing, because you can pretend, because you'll have the output, the right output.
Right.
You can pretend, but you cannot fool the experts, right? And you have to know what you're doing when dealing with the AI. And eventually, this is where this is going to go, right? To niche practices. If you're a designer, you're going to be an amplified designer when you use AI. If you're a broker, you're going to be an amplified broker, and everything is going to be this way, because eventually you'll have the tools. Now there's like a huge gap, but eventually the gap is going to close, and then you'll have, again, the niches, right? You'll have what you have today, even an accountant before Excel. Right? If you could use Excel really well, and then someone else couldn't, then you have a gap, right? So again, now we're having the tools, and we have this exponential curve because it's really fast. The changes are really fast. We're not prepared as a society, and governments are not prepared, and things are shifting really fast. But this is happening, and we have to deal with it, and we have to do the shift. So,
well, here's what I love about it, though, Tal, is that internet, iPhones, all the technology's been challenging for baby boomers. I mean, we are just not. Our minds don't work like that. But when it comes to AI, our minds do work like that. And I think that's the big difference with this technology from all predecessor technologies that we've had to deal with. Because, and baby boomers, let's face it, I mean, a lot of companies are still run by baby boomers. They're being passed on to Gen Xers and millennials, et cetera. They're being passed on, but in large part, a lot of them are still being run by baby boomers, and baby boomers sometimes feel left out. They feel left out. Well, wait a minute, this technology is too hard. And what I'm suggesting is, and I'd like you to kind of walk through what you do with small businesses, because I'm suggesting that I think when it comes to AI, baby boomers have an advantage, and it's not that hard because really just all we're doing is asking the right questions. We're just coming up with a series of questions. You can continue asking the questions, and AI can actually generate its own bot to look at your stuff, and so that you're continually refining what you're doing there. So it seems like this is the one technology that baby boomers may not be so far behind on. So if you could walk us through kind of the steps you take a small business through in using AI in one of your sprints.
Sure. So first of all, what I do is send a questionnaire to the relevant people. I always start from the top, right? And these are usually baby boomers, as you mentioned. And they have to be convinced in what we're going through because they are the ones who are telling the staff and the managers, take 2 hours off this week, just focus on AI implementation, right? Build this custom GPT, create this project on Cloud, create a hub, a knowledge hub on Notebook LM, whatever the tools, right?
Right.
Specific tools can change, but the attitude and the strategy must come from people who understand where the business is going, right? If I'm managing a international conference vendor business and I want more attendees and I want more sponsorships, right? I know my goals, but my staff, they're focused on their thing. And so it has to come from there. And then when the importance, because eventually, it's research based, 70 to 80% of the failure or success rate is the human factor of integrating AI into the business. And what is this human factor? Is change management and adoption of technology. And where does change management happen? With the baby boomers who say, do I want AI here? Do I want to change the existing processes? Do I want to amplify the existing workflows? And this is exactly where we start. We start with mapping the existing workflow, the processes, the goals, right? What do I want to achieve? The sprint, I usually focus on 1 to 2 use cases, right? And then in 30 days, we can create a very significant change. And then after that, for each session, we create quick wins. We start, with, after I map the questionnaire, we do some research on the company. We understand how they work. We understand after the discovery call, what the founder is like, what they're looking at. Also, of course, the level of acquaintance with the existing technology. Are they using it? Are they not using it? It might just be that people are using ChatGPT to 5% or 3% of the capabilities and not 80, 90, 100%. So we might not even introduce a single new tool, just knowing how to work with the existing tools. So this is one thing. And then a lot of the problem with adopting AI is the FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And everyone are experiencing FOMO. And what this causes is many people to just, they get the new tech. And because they're so overwhelmed, they do nothing. I see it a lot. They just do nothing because this is one thing. And the other thing that happens a lot that people tried, I tried GPT once, the output was not good, and they left it. But the most basic understanding has to be that AI is like an intern you just took to the company, and you have to teach them. Now, you wouldn't expect an intern on their first day to give you 100% perfect output, right? This should be the exact same approach. You have a new intern, you teach them, you give them the knowledge. They need to understand how the company works. They need to have access to the data, right? The data is the basic foundation of everything AI, because data is like, if you refer to the question, right? If I'm asking the right question and if I have the right data, the output can be good. Like there is GIGO, right? The garbage in, garbage out. There's also GIGO, gold in, gold out. If it's gold in, it's going to go gold out. And this is the questioning, and this is the data. And if the data is bad, the output is necessarily going to be bad. This is why I also went to, when I decided to focus on this, I took a certification in data engineering because I wanted to understand how the data works. Now, in terms of complexity, again, maybe the setup, the initial setup that we do in, for example, in the sprint, this is a little bit technical. Again, it's not too much. There are things that require more technical, but again, it's mostly the setup. After it, using it shouldn't be too complicated for people who run a business, right? So more the agentic work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're creating a helper in whatever field you're choosing to help you get things done faster, be it inventory, or be it customer support, or be it content creation, whatever you're doing. It's going to help you make it consistently better and faster, but you have to know it's an iterative process. It's not going to be the first time. And this is what breaks a lot of people, because they start and then they don't get the perfect output. And they say, it's easiest to get back to what I do every time, right? If I'm used to doing it, whatever time it takes me, whatever the output, I know how to do it my way. So the shift has to be, first of all, a mindset shift.
But I think that it comes back though to this question, and you bring out a couple of things here. First of all, so the good news is baby boomers all have millennials working in their office. Okay, that's who our primary, that's who our managers are millennials, and millennials are tech savvy. Just as a group, they're tech savvy. Not everyone individually, but as a group they are. So there's chances are we've got people in our company who are tech savvy. So when you're talking about building it and the tech stuff like that, the owners don't need to know how to do that, right? That's something that look, we'll delegate it. Whoever wants to be the champion can be the champion, work with somebody like you and develop the tool. But when it comes to training it, here's the advantage that the baby boomer has, or the person with the more experience has, is that first of all, we're good at training. We've spent years and years training people, right? I mean, every business owner has spent years training people. Otherwise, we wouldn't still be in business, right? And so we're just training AI instead of training a person, like you say, it's an intern. So we're training AI. And we're refining our questions, but it still comes back to me. It seems like that it comes back to being asked the good questions. And if it takes longer, it's maybe because we're not asking the right question in the first place.
That's right. And again, it's not necessarily longer. It's being able to shift the mindset to iterations, not having the perfect answer the first time. And again, it might not be a shift from 1 hour to 1 month. It's just 1 hour to 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, but it's going to happen. And eventually, like for example, now when we train a custom GPT, which is basically a type of an agent, right? Agentic is a spectrum, right? From nothing to 100%, no human in the loop. There's a spectrum, and a custom GPT is basically a type of an agent, right? Also, the new models of ChatGPT are agents, basically, O3 and the stuff. So you need to know what you're doing, because you want to see that the agent is actually doing what you want it to do. And again, this goes back to asking the right question and knowing what type of knowledge will be necessary to get the right type of answers. And obviously the knowledge is in your core business, right? You know how operations work, you know what clients like or dislike. Like all of this knowledge has to be integrated somehow to your agent, custom GPT project, whatever it is, in order to get the output that you want to get.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. So let's talk about agents just for a second, because I think most people don't know what an agent is. Business owners we spent years and years creating systems. which
Yeah.
a lot of those systems are really our policies and procedures. But if I'm kind of the way I look at that agent is really AI can be all of those policies and procedures without having to write them all down. You're just training AI to have those built into the system. So you don't have to spend all that time. I mean, I've had times, years where we've spent literally thousands of man hours developing processes and procedures, which was always very frustrating to me. It seems like with AI, we're talking about doing this in a matter of a few weeks, in a sprint with you, or we can actually put all of this knowledge. One of the other issues is we lose so much knowledge when somebody leaves, right? There's so much knowledge that leaves. So can you kind of address that in terms of that agent, and how you're setting up the AI?
Right. So I'll just give you an example of a workflow that you can use. For example, now you have a conversation with your engineer about a process that you want to create in the company. And then like we have now, you use a transcriber, an AI agent to transcribe the call. And then you prompt it to create a process from your call. Right? So instead of someone spending now 5, 6 hours documenting, which everyone hates,
Yep.
you just take the call and you have a structure of a prompt, right? You can use, for example, just let's use a specific tool by Google. It's called Notebook LM. And you take the sources. For example, one source would be the transcription of the call or 10 transcriptions of 10 calls we had about this topic. And then I prompt it with an example of an existing process documentation, for example, right? Because I have those. And then I wanted to take the 10 transcripts that I just had and turn it into a new process documentation based on the old one. This is a workflow that can save you tons of hours and will give you a very good output because A, you gave it an example of how good looks like. And this only you can know as a person who has the experience, right? And also you give it the specifics of the output or the discussions you had. And this is the main advantages of LLMs, even before the new models, is identifying patterns, right? They do it
Right.
very efficiently and
Right.
quickly, much better than humans. So let's use it for that. Right? And then I create process documentation in a much shorter time and
Well,
basically without,
and then on top of that, it's searchable.
yes.
Right
And
now, I don't have to. I mean, it's all in the AI system, so you don't have to go. Okay, I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to put it over here, because you're just going to search it.
yeah, yeah. And you'll have a project, for example, if you want to onboard someone and you
Right.
have all question that everyone asks or the knowledge that you want to transfer, you have a hub, let's say again on Notebook LM, because it's just very, it's typical knowledge hub, right? And you would upload all the documents, and you would create on that hub the FAQ file, a mind map of how the business looks like, an audio overview, which is very interactive of the company, and people can just type in their questions about the company
Right.
before coming to anyone else. So this can be a full workflow of employee onboarding for a new company created in one hub. And the setup would take 1, 2, 3, 4 hours if you know where the data is, if you know what to ask, but then you have it, and anyone new in the company will have this knowledge hub to question, right?
Yeah, I love it. So, if you will, as we wrap up, would you just give us maybe two or three steps that you would have a business owner take to start integrating AI?
Yeah. So the first step, and we mentioned it, is to understand the goals, or maybe more specifically, one goal. Start small, start with a pilot project with a real pain point that you're having, and just focus on this one. And also focus on something that people can visually see how it improves their lives, basically, right? Their work, but their lives. Because if now, let's say, I just did a project for project managers in a company that does a lot of outreach before conferences and stuff like that, and they are the CEO, COO of the company told me, our employees are not happy before the conferences. They're working their ass off until 12 p.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and we want happier employees. So we started with this for a small pilot conference, and then we created a custom GPT for them that turned a 2-week process into half an hour. Okay, creating all the outreach in their brand, in their language, with the right people, with the right templates, and then the people can focus on building relationship with the clients instead of frantically writing all the communications and all these specifics of the conference room, the hours. These things can be automated, and then the actual relationship building and nurturing new relationship, you have more time for that. So this is one thing. You find this. You have your goal, you have the specific pilot project that is going to bring people value, and also make sure everyone knows it's an iterative process and give time to people, expand this, even make AI time for people during the week. And I see, this is really a pity. I see business owners that think like the old way, and no, they should do it on their own time, at home, whatever. This is not going to work. Just give them time during the week. Even, I don't want to say make it mandatory, but you can have a meeting around that, and you can share prompts, and you can. So this is the workflow I would suggest is mapping what you're doing currently. Find one small pilot program. Once it's successful, everyone are going to want to implement that, and also obviously. Align everyone, right? Because nowadays I see also 2 things I'm doing for businesses. One is optimizing the cost, because people are kind of spending on tools they're not using, not optimizing, not sure why they're paying for. So we optimize that. So that's one thing that's important for SMBs, because it can scale up the cost of AI tools once you have 5, 10, 20 tools. So maybe you just need 2. Right, but you're paying for many, and you're paying for the wrong tiers, and then etc. So that's one thing. And another thing, obviously, is to kind of strategize around what's important to you, and show like real specific value to the people. And then again, everyone would want to implement. Everyone would want to use that. So this is a good starting point.
I love it. Show them the win, give them the win, show them the how this actually helps, not hurts them, doesn't take more of their time. And that's how we use AI. And of course, when we actually learn how to use AI the right way, we're going to end up always making more money and paying less tax. And Tal, if you would give us, where can people find you so that we can reach you?
Sure. So you have my LinkedIn, Tal Galon on LinkedIn. I do share a lot of AI implementation knowledge over there. So I invite everyone to follow and connect. And if you want, I can share also the email, the other details on the podcast or wherever you.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes. Appreciate that, Tal. Thank you so much for joining us. And if we've done a number of podcasts on AI and the different aspects of AI. I think this has been terrific, Tal. And so go to those others on the Wealthability Show. And remember, again, the more knowledge we get in this, the more money we make. And this is actually a place where it's coming down the road quickly, but we're going to end up paying way less tax at the same time. We'll see y'all next time.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.